Switzerland. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Fulfilled Entrepreneur Podcast, which is the second season of Younger Self MD. Younger Self MD is a practice where we help adults at risk prevent and treat medical conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and chronic kidney disease in as little as 90 days so we can go on to live healthier, happier, and longer lives. And today I have an amazing guest, Dr. Hosein. Please go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Absolutely. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Dr. Hosein Kouros-Mehr. I'm a physician scientist and an author, and I've published my third book recently called Breakthrough, Master Your Default Mode and Thrive. And I'm delighted to be here and tell you about it.
Oh my goodness. So yes, I'm not going to let you get away with that. Okay. Please, can you delve in a little bit more into details about what kind of physician you are
Sure.
and what your day job is? I really want to know everything about the default mode network and all that, but tell me more about your day job.
Sure. So I'm a cancer drug developer. I've been involved in oncology for over 2 decades now, in industry cancer drug development for over a decade. So working very hard to find and develop new medicines for cancer patients. But I am also an author, and this is my third book. And my books tend to be about more of on the mental health, which is a very important component of physical health. And mental health and cancer are intertwined. And so this book is a book about self-growth, self-discovery, centered around this new discovery of the default mode network. Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about it. Like why did you decide to branch into this field, this line of work?
Yeah. The theme is that it's the cutting edge of science. 20 years ago, the cutting edge of science was genomics, the Human Genome Project. Our understanding of cancer really developed as we sequenced the genome. Today, the frontiers of cancer is the brain,
Yeah,
neuroscience, and
yeah.
our understanding of the brain. And it reminds me a lot of genomics 20 years ago, what we're understanding about the brain. So we're recognizing now, for example, that our brain has 7 networks. This isn't something I was taught in medical school, but we're now understanding there are at least, I should say, at least 7 networks. One of them is this default mode network. So this is a book, again, it's not an academic book, it's not a textbook. This is a book, self-help, personal growth, so that you can understand one of these very important networks, again, that DMN.
I mean, yeah, what you said is very important. Oftentimes, people think that physicians have all the answers. And it's important to note that science is evolving. I mean, you said this was not taught in medical school. They probably, I mean, it didn't exist then. I mean, it's new, it's evolving, and this is something that you are investigating and researching and coming up with. So tell us more about it, like the networks, like what does
Yes.
this entail?
So first of all, the default mode network is something you're very familiar with. It is your wandering mind. And it's essentially your ego and yourself. So the way to recognize it is when you're focused on something, let's say driving a car, brushing your teeth, whatever it is, and suddenly your mind wanders, takes you back to the past or the future, has you thinking about some recent memory, maybe an argument you had, or worried about an upcoming event. That's actually a part of your brain that turns on. It's called the default mode network. A network is just different parts of the brain that connect to do a function for you. So there's the visual network, it helps you see. So this default mode network, it's the wandering mind. When it wanders away from the present, it is trying to help you. It is trying to prepare you for the future. It's trying to process some recent memories. But for many of us, this default mode network is overactive, and that wandering mind turns into the monkey mind, and it contributes to things like stress, anxiety, emotional pain, depression, addiction, ADHD. This default mode network has its hand in a lot of mental health conditions. But the good news is that by understanding this default mode network, you can change your relationship to it and permanently resolve some of these conditions. And part of this was a personal experience I had, which I sort of put into this book, along with the science and medicine and spirituality, I should say.
I mean, this is very relevant topic here, because, ever since the pandemic and onward, and now in present times, the mental health issues have skyrocketed: addiction, abuse, ADHD. And many times the biggest criticism I've heard from the non-physician group is that, there are no biomarkers and there are no tests, and so this, I think, is a very relevant field for us to go into. Um, and so now you're saying that there are markers.
Now I'm saying that what used to be called mumbo jumbo, right? The spiritual awakening and your higher self and the ego and the id and all of these terms that didn't have any real medical basis, that's all changing because we now have the biomarkers. The default mode network is something you can see on an fMRI. There are clinical studies showing that patients with depression, for example, have an overactive default mode network, which makes sense because they're always stuck in the past, experiencing guilt or remorse or blame, whatever it is. And it's this overactive DMN that's responsible for that. We're now seeing that. We're now understanding how things like mindfulness exercise, prayer, actually shut down this default mode network. It's actually been shown. Plant medicines like psilocybin also shut down the default mode network. So now there are biomarkers, there are plant medicines, and I think what's coming next are new waves of therapies, just like we saw in cardiology, just like we saw in oncology, where there were some early plant medicines, a new understanding, and then what you saw over decades were new next generation medicines that were safer and more effective. We're going to see the same thing in mental health with better understanding and better tools coming. So it's going to be a new era, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and that's good to know, to our audience. What we're talking about, the things that you had investigated and found out, such as the increased cortical thickness. So there's actually evidence that this is not just some woo-woo therapy, because you actually see changes after you've done right? You were saying earlier, the
That's right.
mindfulness-based therapies. And so there are actually results that you can measure to quantify the progress.
That's right. There are studies showing that an 8-week meditation practice can improve anxiety as good as Lexapro, an antidepressant. There are studies showing that people who meditate for a few months have changes in their cortex, cortical thickening, changes in the brain. Studies showing that reduced stress response, reduced cortisol, a very important stress hormone,
Yeah.
in patients who practice mindfulness, who practice compassion and prayer and forgiveness, a lot of those qualities at the heart of spirituality, we're now seeing actually they improve health. If you were to tell me that there is something out there that could cut cortisol levels in half, which is basically what compassion and mindfulness exercises can do, that would be a blockbuster drug. That would sell billions of dollars, something that would cut cortisol in half. And now studies are showing that spiritual practices, mindfulness, actually improve, physical health. And so it's amazing to see this. I have these studies referenced in the back of the book. But again, this is not a textbook. I don't want to bore people with data. There is clinical data in here, but it's summarized. The whole point of this book is to help you with that self-understanding.
I like that, even though you're a big, you're the medical guy, the farmer, oncologist, you are also emphasizing that there are non-medical therapies and that these medical therapies are also effective, because, this is where one of the biggest critiques that we get as well is that all we want to do as physicians is just keep on prescribing.
Right.
And but
Yeah.
there are also some physicians, as you hear now, that are more interested in other therapies and continue to explore newer based therapies. And I'm glad that you've delved into this line of work as well. So let's move on to the next phase of our podcast, which is I like to ask my guests, what's your favorite thing to do now
Uh,
in general?
well, there are two things. So this is something I've discovered about myself. There are two things I need to do to be happy. The first is to be fully present in this moment. whether that's listening to a song, whether that's just being present as I go for a walk, being present. And the second is having an intention to help somebody else. What I found is though, when I have those two things, I'm just generally pretty happy. When I'm obsessed about me and my career and what I've accomplished and my, which is default mode network, I'm generally unhappy, actually. So, a lot of us, doctors, oncologists, et cetera, we're high up on the pedestal and things are about me and I. For me, that took me to a very unhappy place. And I had 11 of these knots that I call them. I don't call them disorders or syndromes. I call them knots. And, there was about a 6-month process where I freed myself from all of it. And I put that in this book. So I love to write. That's one of my passions. It's something I love to do. But yeah.
I love that. So yeah, writing and then becoming fully present and creating the intention to help. Like that happened to me one day. I was going to work very early in the morning. Was what one of those my 5 a.m. shifts. And I found myself, what you said is absolutely correct. You become aware. So I became aware that I wasn't feeling quite right. And the first thing I did was like, okay, I need to help someone right now. I need to help. Who am I going to help? I picked up the phone and I called, and, I'll tell you the rest of the story later on. And I called a friend. Well, I'll tell you now, might as well. So I called and helped somebody, and that made me feel so much better. So it's always about the other instead of the other person. I like to say that we have one human, we're all connected. And at the end of the day, the human connection is strong, and we should all definitely look for how to serve each other,
Yeah.
one another.
Don't take our word for it. Try it yourself. Try, spend 5 minutes, observe your mind, and then spend 5 minutes having that intention to help others and see how it makes you feel. Like, be a scientist, see and learn for yourself. That's what I would recommend.
Well, this was an amazing episode, and thank you so much for joining us. And so, how can our guests find you?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. The website is yourdefaultmode.com. You can preview the book. You can start reading it for free. My other books are also there. You can preview for free. And all of my social media handles are on the bottom of that page. So yeah, and I'll put this podcast there. All my other podcasts are there as well. So I'm just trying to spread the word about this very important discovery and try to help others. That's really the whole point of this.
yes, yes. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was nice to have you. And stay tuned for our next mystery guest on the Fulfilled Entrepreneur podcast.